Death, be not proud, by John Donne. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou think'st thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, change, kings and desperate men, and dost with poisoned war and sickness dwell. And Bobby or Tom can make us sleep as well. And better than thy stroke, why swell'st thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die.
Death, be not proud. The title sounds very scary and gloomy because it talks about death. You can imagine this poem is trying to scare the readers or even brings desperation. Well, actually, it is more than that. Actually, the theme of the poem is about religion. Donne was a Catholic, and many of his poems are talking about religion. It also brings the theme mortality. This poem explains how death brings people in the world to the eternal life. From this mortality, we also can find hopes, dreams, and even courage. If the death is not that scary, why should we be afraid then? Moreover, that it's actually kinda good. From this, we have our hopes. Well, I will not talk about it too much because the deeper analysis will be explained by my friend later. The reason why we choose this poem as our subject is because we want to have something different. Because we know that poetry is always being connected with love, romance, and those kind of things. Most of our friends may be thinking about having a love poem, romantic or heartbroken. Well, we now try to talk about that because why not? And we also have one other opinion. Well, we think that most of us are religious people, thus we want to choose this one.
John Donne was born in a Catholic family who faced so many persecutions in England, and for example, it is indicated by when John Donne had his own educations in Oxford and Cambridge, but he couldn't get his degree after years of educating himself in that, considerably popular universities. His own mother, namely Elizabeth Heywood Donne, is also the greatness of the martyr Sir Thomas More. It is important to note that martyr or martyred is referring to someone who is, executed, beheaded, because the differences of the religions or other, differences of the political belief. So his family faced a lot of persecution, and somehow it puts much hatred from his family and lived in fear. It is also affecting his own life, the John Donne's life. He, tried so many occupations out there. He changed his jobs numerous times. For example, apart from being poet, he was also being a lawyer, being the member of the parliamentary, and most shockingly, he was also a preacher who gave a sermon. So he was appointed by the King James I, particularly, and it is a bit contradictory though, considering that he is being the preacher of evangelical, Christianity. So he converted himself to be evangelical. Evangelical priest tries to convince the majority of the publics to accept the kingships of the King James without compromising his religion. So yeah, maybe that's why King James put so much trust towards John Donne. And the thing that make me questioning his biography is the fact that he spent lots of money for traveling and for visiting brothels, trying out so many girls out there before he settled into a girl and had 12 children. So yeah, he had no stable jobs, he had no good salary, but he spends his money for this glorious utility, glorious happiness. But maybe he was just looking for inspirations for his poems, considering that he brought so many themes of the poems. For example, poems about sexuality, poems about erotics, topics, poems about questioning gods, religions, and stuff. But the most important thing is why he brought the poems, namely, that be no proud. That was only because he was getting old, he was facing an illness, serious illness, and in the meantime, he made these poems. But it was not published, not until his death. Like at some decades after his death. These poems appears thanks to some poets like T.S. Eliot and William Butler, who admire the works of the John Donne, and that's why he became a very prominent metaphysical poet. So what is metaphysical poetry though? Basically, metaphysical poetry is a little bit different with lots of categories of poems out there. Metaphysical poems brings about intellectuality. It talks about the wittiness that challenge the existence of something that is considered abstract and taboo. For example, questioning about death, making paradox of death, and maybe the punishments of God, or maybe the existence of God himself. But I cannot say that John Donne questioning God himself, but he questions about the existence of the afterlife that is depicted as a inferno, lots of fire and lots of pains. He make it very different that you will find it in the analysis later on. So congratulations to Johnny Donne. He is being the founder of the metaphysical poems. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, so let's talk about the interpretation of this poem. I will tell you the first 8 lines, the first stanza. There are the first line, that be not proud, though some have called thee. In the first line, as you can read the poem, that the poem is trying to tell to that even he is powerful, and he like addressing that as a human, but even that is a powerful,
That should not feel arrogant, even though some people have told him. The next line is mighty and dreadful, for thou are not so. That even he is a powerful and makes people are afraid of him. Actually, he is not that awful and terrifying thing. And then in the next line, for those whom thou think is thou dost overthrow, because the people whom he thinks he is successfully defeated by killing them are not actually die. They go to eternal life and cannot be died. Cannot be died. And then the next line is, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. Those people are not really die, right? The poem is like slapping death in the face by telling that death is weak and pitiful things. That is, he even cannot make the poem itself, causing the poem to die. And then the next is, from rest and sleep, which bed thy pictures be. In this line, the poem is considering that death is the imitation of resting and sleeping. The next line tell much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow. That from the resting and sleeping, people usually got much pleasure, right? For example, like they can boost the energy and mood. So in this line, the poem wanna change the people's perspective about death. That is commonly awful and sad things. They can get much pleasure from the rest and death. So death can be great for everyone. The next line is, and soon as our best men with thee do go. And then the best men often die young. They go with death earlier. They go too soon. And the last 8 lines is, rest of their bones and souls daily free, and all that death is simply a chance for their bones to be rested and their souls taken out from the body. All is a good thing, right? So yeah, people can be freed from their sin and the burden while when they live a life in the world, and they can go to eternal life with a delightful soul.
In this line, the writer, Mr. John Donne, talks about the death as a human. Here he is mocking the death as the slaves or the four kind of thing: fate, chance, kings, and also desperate men. Why? Because he thinks that death is only receiving the order of the four kind of things. For example, if the king orders his soldier to go to war, it is possible for the death to meet with the soldier. But if it is not, it is impossible for the death to take the human's life. So the writer here mocking the death as a loser. Then next, the writer is comparing the death with a poppy flower. Like what my friends explained before, death is only like a sleep. Poppy flower is like a flower in the old times to make drugs and also opium. It is like the thing that can make you sleep easily. So if you want to take a sleep, the writer said it is better for you to take the poppy flower than the death. So it is like death is nothing. You don't have to think about death. It's better for you to take the poppy flowers. And the last line, here the writer explained about death. He emphasized that death is like sleep, and it is like a short sleep. Like when you sleep, it is not you sleep forever. One day, in the end of the world, you will wake up and you will live eternally. So it doesn't. So it is not necessary for you to think about the death. So the writer said that death is actually not exist.
Okay, let's talk about the
The
diction
diction.
of this poem. So, in this poem, John Donne is using strong diction in several places. One interesting about this poem is commonly people talk about that in using the negative words like sad and thoughtful and awful, yeah. But in this poem, the interesting one is the John Donne is talking otherwise. Mainly, he is talking in using by using
Positive,
positive
yes.
words. The positive words can be seen in line 7 until 8. That are. And soon as our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Here, Donne is describing that as a peaceful thing, peaceful deliverance for those who have faced it. So it doesn't deserve fear or dreadful things
I
like
see.
that. So yeah, it can be just flow.
So it use positive diction.
Yeah, it's yes.
For the last, for the first part, right?
Yes, for the first part, the first 8 line.
Yeah.
How about the negative?
For the negative, the writer used it in the second part. Here, he suddenly changed the diction into the negative. The example is in the line 9 is, if I'm not mistaken, he used the word. What is it? Slaves. So here the writer like shows that death is actually is a powerless thing. So you don't have to be afraid about death. Yeah, here the writer still use the strong diction to show, to explain about the death. So all in all, here the writer used both diction, positive and negative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, guys, we have already interpreted each line about this poem, right? So now I will tell you about the meaning of the contents generally or conclusion of this poem and continue to the mood and tone. Well, here the speaker brings forth an argument, and the argument is that gives us the way to the eternal life, a kind of freedom from this worldly sorrow. So that is just a sound sleep from which we will awake at the day of judgment. So, and then from the beginning, the speaker starts talking about death, whom he treats as a person, and he tells that that not to be so proud because he's really not as scary or powerful as most people think. And also the speaker starts talking about in contradictions, saying that people do not really die when they meet death, and neither will the speaker. And then the speaker tries to brings down death by comparing him to rest and sleep, to things that are not really scary at all. And next, the speaker claims that only the good die young, because the best people know that death brings us pleasure, not pain. So, as if this isn't enough, the speaker kicks it up a notch, calling death a slave and accusing him of hanging out from this low life, such poison, war, and
sickness. Besides, we do not need to death. For instance, the speaker can just take drugs and it will have the same effect. For example, like falling asleep. And so that is just only a short sleep, after which the good Christians will wake up and find himself in eternity, or we can say it by paradise or heaven. Once this happens, it will seem that has died. So in this poem, the speaker or the author believes that there is no reasoning and fearing that, and that also doesn't have any logical reasons to be proud of. And I continue to the mood. So reflecting to the contents, this poem has its specific mood. Initially, the readers are surprised by the author's provoking attitude towards death. However, as it continues, the tone attempts to get readers to dispute their own acceptance of death's mightiness in order to cover any lingerer first. And then for the speaker tune of this tone, it begins as challenging, but as the narrator's one-sided conversations with the dead goes on, it turns to blatant belittlement and disregard. So in this poem, it was somehow dark yet truthful, but somehow shed some light in humanity towards the end. So I think I found this was because of how the author put the reader in an agreeable position when speaking of how that shouldn't be proud, because we as humans have more to be proud of.
Well, there are some types of figurative language that is used in this poetry. We have personification and apostrophe, alliteration, iambic rhythm, rhetorical, and paradox. Personification, person. So we know that that is not a person, right? That is a thing. So the idea of personification is changing non-human into a human. We can see from the line that be not proud, though some might have quality. So Donne here, he changed that as a person. He pictures him as a human. And also we have apostrophe. Apostrophe is when the author giving the dead some feelings, like that be not proud, and also poor dead. And we also have alliteration. The example of alliteration can be seen from the way John Donne wrote, one short sleep pass, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. The repetition of the same sound is the alliteration. Like the D in death, and die. So yeah, there are so many alliteration in this poetry, and we also have metaphor. From rest and sleep, which thy pictures be. Here, John was trying to convince us, the readers, that that is more like a pleasure, just like what my friends have explained before. Well, sleeping is good, right? And that is just something deeper than a sleep. We don't have anything to be afraid of. And we can picture that that is actually not that scary. The mystery of death is now solved. Now we talk about iambic rhythm. Even though the matter there varies, but most of the poem use iambic pentameter. Penta is 5, right? So for example, the fifth line, from rest and sleep, which but they pictures be. So the stress comes every 2 syllables. So there are 5 of them because every line have 10 syllables, right? And the poem also has a question, a rhetorical question. Why swells thou then? This question means that Donne was trying to bring death down. So the dead actually cannot be proud, for he is just a bridge that brings people in the world to the eternal life. And also the last is paradox. It is presented as the Christian belief that they have the eternity. Last line is, and death shall be no more, that thou shalt die. See, there is no need to fear the death, for it is just a tool to get the immortality.
Much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow, that we can gather the idea that from the resting and sleeping, commonly becomes so much pleasure.